You going live? It's both out here on fleet. Hey, let me see. Oh, you want to go live today, right? Because your hair on fleet. You ain't want to go live the other day. Huh. Look at that lipstick. We got 4 viewers.
Atlanta family is demanding answers after the man accused of killing their loved one takes a plea deal. Police say Kenyatta Jones killed Morgan Bazemore and Alicia Herford in 2021.
The victims were mother and daughter. The original charge was murder, but Jones has pleaded down to manslaughter. Allison Basil has details on the change.
On February 18th, 2024, deep in the heart of Houston, Texas, a morning that should have felt ordinary began to unravel before sunrise. The air was still. The streets were quiet. Nothing seemed out of place. But within minutes, everything would shift. A woman lay lifeless near the edge of the roadway. A vehicle that should have brought her home instead became the center of a mystery that would grip the entire city. At first, it looked like a tragic accident, the kind of call officers respond every day. But the truth? This wasn't just another 911 report. This was the beginning of a story that refused to sit still. Because when investigators opened her car door, that's when the world tilted. Inside, tucked away, hidden with intention, sat nearly $250,000 in cash. Stacked, bundled, quiet, almost waiting to be found. Money that raised more questions than answers. Money that didn't match the scene, the victim, or the story her killer was about to tell. Y'all, the moment that cash came into view, this case didn't just break open, it detonated. Every assumption collapsed. Every theory had to be re-examined. And what looked like a simple tragedy suddenly became the kind of puzzle that keeps detectives awake at night. Welcome back to Crime Journal TV, the place where we pull back the curtain on the cases that haunt communities, expose hidden truths, and remind us just how fragile life can be. If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown like this. On this channel, we take you inside the investigation, not for shock value, but to understand the human stories behind every headline, the choices, the consequences, the moments that change everything. And let me be clear with you from the very beginning. This case is not what it looks like. Every step forward uncovers something unexpected. Every detail adds weight. Every unanswered question pulls us deeper into the truth the suspect wanted to bury. So settle in, because the journey we're about to take, it's layered, it's emotional, and it will leave you questioning how something so devastating could unfold in broad daylight. Let's begin. Before the tragedy, before the sirens, before the final phone call that changed everything. There were 2 women, a daughter finding her place in the world, and the mother who had always been her anchor. Morgan Bazemore came first, born in 1997, with a spirit that arrived bright, restless, and full of possibility. She grew up with a softness in her smile, but a fire in her ambition. People often said she was the kind of person who didn't just walk into a room. She lifted it. She dreamed big. She worked hard. She loved deeply, sometimes too deeply for her own good. Her relationship choices weren't perfect, but she believed in fixing what was broken, in healing what was hurt, in giving second chances, even when the first had already drawn blood. And in that hopefulness, there was danger waiting. But standing beside her, always, was her mother. Alicia Herford, born in 1968, carried a different kind of light. Not loud, not showy, just steady, reliable, unshakable. The kind of woman who survived life by loving her children fiercely and quietly, even when the world tried to wear her down. She was a calm in the chaos, the voice that steadied Morgan, the presence that reminded her daughter she was never truly alone. Alicia had lived long enough to know that trouble rarely announces itself. It slips back into your life disguised as something familiar, something forgiven, something you think can't hurt you anymore. And she saw it long before anyone said it out loud. The unease in Morgan's voice, the tension in her shoulders, the way her daughter's happiness had slowly begun to dim. In the months leading up to that final morning, a mother knows. She may not speak it, she may not push, but she feels it. Two women, 123, 152, moving through their own lives, carrying their own dreams, connected by a bond stronger than anything that had ever threatened them. But even with all that love, even with all that light, a shadow had already begun to form around them. A shadow shaped like the past. Persistent, unpredictable, and far more dangerous than either of them realized. And as they woke up that morning, neither Morgan nor Alicia knew that the danger they thought they left behind was already on its way back into their lives, determined to take everything. Now, let's talk about the man in their lives. His name was Kenyatta Jones. Not just a name on a police report, but a presence in her life that grew more complicated over time, more tangled with Morgan's heart, and more dangerous than anyone realized until it was already too late. Kenyatta didn't come from a world filled with stability and calm. He grew up with uncertainty, an environment where emotions ran hot and forgiveness was never given twice. That kind of upbringing doesn't teach you how to control fire. It teaches you how to burn with it. Friends and neighbors who knew him early on said the same thing. There was a temper inside him, quiet at first, but always waiting, always coiled, always ready to strike. And when jealousy entered his heart, it didn't simmer. It consumed him. His relationship with Morgan was never simple, and it certainly wasn't healthy. To the outside world, it looked like two people trying to make something work. But underneath the surface was a volatile mix of emotion, attachment, and control. Some moments between them were full of warmth, laughter, connection, shared plans, the kind of moments that make a relationship feel like home. But other moments were darker, arguments that started with a word and ended in silence, tension that sat heavy in the air long after the voices had quieted. A cycle of conflict, apology, and reconciliation that became exhausting to everyone around them. Morgan tried to help him, tried to be patient, tried to love him through his storms. But the truth is, you can't soothe the fire with hope alone. Control issues didn't hide in Kenyatta. They lived in him. He wanted influence over her choices, her time, her emotions. And when he felt threatened by anything that pulled her attention away from him, something inside him flared. People close to Morgan saw the changes, the subtle shifts in her behavior, but she didn't want to burden anyone with her pain. She didn't want to admit how weary she had become. And she never wanted anyone else to suffer because of her choices. There were times she wanted to walk away, times she tried to distance herself, times she wished the tension was gone. But the past didn't stay in the past. When Kenyatta came back into her life, it wasn't gentle. It wasn't calm. It was a return of unfinished emotions, resentments, attachment, hope, and danger. And once the past walked through the front door of her present, there was no shutting it out again. Family felt it. Friends felt it. And somewhere inside his unpredictability, Morgan began to change. She became quieter. Not because she didn't care, but because carrying that weight every day starts to take pieces of you don't notice until they're gone. Every situation like this has its warning signs. Hindsight always sees things clearer than foresight. And looking back now, the signs were there. The quiet moments that didn't feel right, the arguments that didn't resolve, the tension that never fully disappeared. They weren't loud, not at first, but they were persistent. And by the time the danger became undeniable, the shadow Kenyatta cast had already stretched far beyond what anyone could have imagined, reaching into a night that would change everything. February 18th, the day the story shifted and never shifted back. It started like any other quiet morning in Norfolk, Virginia. A chill in the air, a calmness over the neighborhood, people heading to work, kids waiting for the bus, nothing out of place. But for Morgan Bazemore, this morning was a routine. She had agreed to meet with Kenyatta Jones. Maybe she wanted answers. Maybe she wanted peace. Maybe she still believed, even after everything, that the man she once loved could change, could listen, could finally let go. No one knows exactly what she hoped for, but everyone knows what came next. They met in the car. Two people with history trying to navigate emotions that had been simmering for years. A conversation that was supposed to bring closure, but instead brought catastrophe. Witnesses would later say they heard voices rising, a heated argument, tension spilling into the cold air, shadows moving inside the vehicle as the conflict escalated. Neighbors turned their heads, some concerned, some unsure. But before anyone could intervene, chaos broke. A scream, a sudden movement, and in that split second, that irreversible moment, everything went still. Morgan was struck, her body collapsing with a silence that felt heavier than sound. A life full of light, dimming in an instant. Kenyatta didn't stay. He didn't call for help. He didn't try to save the woman he claimed to love. He fled, disappearing into the streets like a man running from his own shadow.
2 years after their loved one's murders, Norfolk police say they responded to a shooting at Hunter Square Apartments on March 12, 2021, and found 23-year-old Morgan Bazemore and her mother, 52-year-old Alicia Herford, shot to death in the parking lot.
Officers arrived. They expected tragedy. They expected a domestic dispute gone horribly wrong. They did not expect what came next. Inside the car, tucked away with deliberate precision, they found nearly $250,000 in cash. Bundles wrapped tightly, organized, hidden with intention, not loose money, not random, not accidental. It was the kind of cash that didn't belong in a tragedy like this, the kind that raised questions faster than answers could keep up. Why was she carrying that much? Where was it from? Was she holding it for someone? Had Kenyatta known? Had it played a role in the argument? Or was it a secret Morgan never had the chance to explain? Suddenly, this wasn't just a case about heartbreak or violence. It wasn't just a domestic incident gone wrong. It became layered. It became loaded. It became dangerous. Because money like that, money hidden that carefully, it doesn't sit quietly in the background. It changes motives. It changes theories. It changes everything. Officers didn't just see a victim and a suspect anymore. They saw a puzzle. One piece of truth lie in the street, and $250,000 silently asking the question no one was ready to answer. What was really happening in Morgan's life? And who else might have been involved? This wasn't just a tragic loss. This was the beginning of a mystery, one that would pull detectives into a web of secrets, tension, and contradictions deeper than anyone realized. And this was only the beginning. Detectives stepped in with one mission: find the truth. And from the moment they arrived, the scene told them something wasn't right. There were no skid marks, no signs of a driver slamming the brakes, no last-second attempt to avoid impact. Morgan's injuries didn't match an accident either. They were deliberate, targeted, violent. The physical evidence whispered the truth long before the suspect ever said a word. Witnesses gave what they could: fragments of shouting, glimpses of movement, a figure fleeing the scene. Every detail pointed in the same direction. This wasn't a moment of panic. This was a decision. The interviews, a story that wouldn't stay still. When detectives sat across from Kenyatta Jones, they weren't looking for drama. They were looking for clarity. But that clarity never came. Instead, Kenyatta's story shifted like sand. First version, he wasn't there. Second version, he was there, but it was an accident. Third version, something happened, but he couldn't remember the details. Detectives weren't dealing with confusion. They were dealing with manipulation. Every time they pressed, Kenyatta pivoted. Every time they questioned the timeline, he rewrote it. But lies eventually suffocate under the weight of real evidence. Technology doesn't lie. People do. Surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses began to surface. A camera caught his car. A timestamp contradicted his alibi. Another clip showed him fleeing. not helping, not calling for aid, just running. Then came the phone records, call logs, location pings, messages, the silent trail he didn't realize he left behind. Everything told a story opposite of what Kenyatta tried to sell. His movements placed him with Morgan. His phone placed him at the scene at the exact time of the incident. His silence afterward only grew louder with every uncovered detail. Detectives didn't just see inconsistency. They saw guilt tightening its own noose. And then there was the money. That $250,000 sat inside the vehicle like a riddle. A riddle no one expected. A riddle that turned a domestic homicide into a case with hidden layers. Detectives asked themselves the same questions viewers will be asking today. Why was she carrying $250,000? Where did she get it? Was she delivering it? Was she hiding it? Did Kenyatta know? Or was he involved? The cash wasn't scattered. It wasn't random. It was bundled, neat, deliberate. Someone meant for it to be there, and someone meant for it to stay hidden. Detectives theorized everything. A secret deal? A debt? A hidden financial life Morgan never told her family about? Or was she protecting someone? Nothing was off the table. But one thing became clear. That money intensified everything. Emotion, motive, danger. What started as a violent confrontation now looked like a collision between personal pain and something much bigger. Something Morgan never had the chance to explain. The breakthrough. Investigators revisited the scene. Every detail, every angle, every witness statement. And slowly, the puzzle began to form a picture. The arguments, the injuries, the timeline, the flight, the lies, the cash. Piece by piece, the truth edged closer and closer until detectives could no longer pretend this was confusion or chaos. This wasn't panic. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a moment that spiraled out of control. This was intentional. A deliberate act of violence. A calculated escape. A desperate attempt to outrun reality and erase accountability. And as detectives closed in on the truth, they realized something chilling. Morgan didn't just lose her life. She walked into a storm she never saw coming. And Kenyatta Jones was at the center of it. The courtroom became a battlefield of truth and denial. Not a space for peace. Not a space for healing. Just a room where pain sat on every bench. And the air felt heavy with things no one could unsay. Morgan's family filled one side. Faces worn from months of grief, exhaustion, and outrage. Alicia's loved one sat beside them, still navigating the impossible reality of losing not just one, but two pillars of their world. Every testimony reopened wounds they thought had already bled dry. The medical examiner, the detectives, the witnesses who heard those final moments. Each voice layered another truth onto the story, a truth the family already knew deep in their bones. Morgan didn't die by accident. Alicia didn't die by coincidence. This was violence. Purposeful. Targeted. Final. On the other side of the courtroom sat Kenyatta Jones. He avoided eye contact, shifted in his seat, muttered explanations that collapsed the moment they touched evidence. Every time he tried to rewrite the narrative, the facts snapped it right back into place. The lies he clung to in interviews wilted under sworn testimony. Phone data proved his path. Surveillance video proved his presence. Forensic analysis proved his intent. And that $250,000 in cash? It hung over the courtroom like a ghost, a silent witness that raised more questions than Kenyatta could ever answer. Where did it come from? Why was it hidden? Did he know? Did it play a role in everything that happened? He never explained it. He never could. But the jury didn't need explanations. They needed truth. And the truth was unmistakable. When the clerk stood to read the decision, the room froze. You could hear someone exhale. You could hear someone else whisper a prayer. You could feel hearts bracing for impact. And then, in a voice that felt too calm for the weight of the moment, the verdict was delivered. Guilty. Guilty for the choices he made. Guilty for the violence he inflicted. Guilty for the lives he shattered. But what came next stunned the family. It stunned the community. It stunned everyone who followed the case. The sentence, 8 years. 8 years. Not 20. Not life. Not the decades that many believe were deserved. Just 8. 8 years for a life stolen. 8 years for a mother who rushed to save her daughter. 8 years for a future ripped apart. 8 years for trauma that would last a lifetime. The courtroom didn't erupt. It deflated. Morgan's
Couldn't say much about the case, but says, quote, "We made the offer as the best of a series of options based on the limited evidence we had." Bazemore's aunt says her family wants more answers about why this case didn't go to trial.
Something else needs to be done about this whole system, this whole corruption. You know, how do you shoot 2 people and you walk away with 4 years? You can hit a geese or a dog and get more time. So how do you get just 8 years total for 2 beautiful souls?
years for actions that cause permanent loss. 8 years for destruction that cannot be undone. 8 years for 2 lives. Aftermath. A community in mourning. In the days that followed, vigils filled the streets. Candles lit every evening. Photos of Morgan and Alicia lined sidewalks, parks, and porches. Neighbors cried together, prayed together, demanded answers together. Friends remembered Morgan's laughter and Alicia's resilience. 2 women whose lives were intertwined by love and taken by violence. Meanwhile, questions about the money remained unanswered. Questions about the motive remained unresolved. And questions about the justice system grew louder with every passing day. 2 families broken. A future stolen. A truth that hurts every time it's spoken. Do you believe 8 years was justice? Or was the system far too lenient for the weight of the loss? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because this one cuts deep. She deserved love. She deserved protection. She deserved a life that didn't end this way. Morgan deserved to see her dreams unfold. Alicia deserved to grow old surrounded by the family she fought so hard to protect. 2 women, connected by blood, bound by love, and taken by violence that should never have touched their world. And if this case teaches us anything, it's that danger doesn't always arrive with warning signs. Sometimes it hides behind apologies. Sometimes it hides inside memories. Sometimes it hides in people we once trusted. Jealousy, control, possessiveness. These aren't small red flags. They are storms building quietly. Storms that can destroy everything in a single moment. So if you or someone you know feels unsafe, if something doesn't feel right, if someone's love feels more like fear than comfort, please reach out. Talk to someone. Tell a friend. Tell a family member. Tell anyone who can help before the storm breaks. Your safety matters. Your life matters. And you deserve peace. Morgan and Alicia's story will never be forgotten. Their light still echoes to the people who love them, to the community that mourn them, and to every person hearing their story tonight. Their names deserve to be remembered. Their truth deserves to be spoken. And their legacy deserves more than silence. If this story moved you, if it opened your eyes, or if you believe others need to hear it, share this video with your friends, your family, and anyone who cares about justice and awareness. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications and join the Crime Journal TV community, because here we shine a light on the darkest stories. We honor the lives behind the headlines, and we speak the truth even when it hurts, because these stories matter, because their names deserve to be remembered. This is Crime Journal TV, and I'll see you in the next one.